Beneath the shattered spires of the ancient city of Lorath, Princess Sorelli lay trapped under a heavy slab of broken ceiling. Her slender frame pressed against cool, splintered stone. The air tasted of dust and ionized metal, and every breath echoed sharply in the silent corridors. Her heart pounded with fear, yet she forced herself to remain calm, for panic would waste precious oxygen. She remembered the bright halls of her palace, where sunlight danced on golden banners and laughter drifted like music through lofty chambers. Now, only darkness and silence remained, broken by the distant thunder of battle above. Sorelli closed her eyes and pictured her people's soft-eyed Lorathi children playing in crystal gardens. Her mother's gentle voice teaching kindness, and her father's proud gaze when he spoke of hope. She whispered a soft prayer to the fallen sun, the sacred symbol of her lost kingdom, begging for strength. Hours passed like frozen moments. Her life support collar, damaged by falling debris, sputtered and strained to keep her alive. She pressed a trembling hand against the control panel carved with ancient runes, willing it to respond, but only a faint green light flickered. Eyes stinging, Sorelli thought of the war that had come from the stars, a war that spared nothing, not even the innocent. She had fled deeper into the ruins to escape the bombardment, trusting that help would come. But as the rubble settled and the dust cleared, she heard only her own heartbeat. No rescue ships arrived. No ally sounded her name. Loneliness settled over her like a heavy cloak. She whispered through chattering teeth, "I am still here." Hush. Each word seemed fragile, like a broken promise. Yet in that whisper lay a spark of defiance. Sorelli was a princess of Lorath, a race known for compassion and courage. Even here, on the edge of despair, she would not give up hope. She pressed her hand to her chest, feeling the slow, steady beat of her heart, a reminder that life, however fragile, still flowed within her. Outside, the war raged on. Explosions shook the ruins, sending tremors through Sorelli's body and rattling dust from above. She gripped the stone with both hands, knuckles white, and focused on steadying her breath. In her mind, she replayed her father's final lesson. Strength is not the roar of weapons, but the quiet resolve of the heart. The words warmed her, filling her with renewed determination. She could only reach her communicator. She could send a distress call woven into Lorathi frequencies. But the transmitter lay buried, tangled in cables and twisted metal. Time was slipping away. Sorelli's vision blurred as fatigue weighed on her eyelids. She forced them open, blinking rapidly to fight the darkness at the edges. She raised her voice, though her throat burned, calling out to any who might hear, "Help me. I am Sorelli of the fallen sun throne." Her words bounced back at her, hollow against stone walls. Yet in that echo lay a promise she had spoken. Her truth, and the galaxy might remember as her strength waned. Sorelli reached out again, tracing the rim of her life support collar. She whispered a hymn of her people, a melody of hope passed down through generations. The song filled her, mind steadying her pulse. She closed her eyes and imagined a distant light guiding her home. In the deepest part of her heart, she believed that even in a galaxy consumed by war, a single act of compassion could shine brighter than any weapon. And so, trapped in the ruins with only her will to sustain her, Princess Sorelli held on to hope. As the night wrapped its silent embrace around her, she would wait, she would pray, and she would survive, because in the fallen sun, even the smallest glimmer could spark a new dawn. Lieutenant Mara Holt guided her small reconnaissance shuttle through drifting clouds of ash and shattered hull fragments. Her visor's heads-up display glowed with readouts of atmospheric toxins and radiation levels. Every sensor read danger. But she pressed on, searching for survivors of Horizon Core strikes. Her jaw tightened as she thought of her squad, lost when a careless orbital strike went wrong. Each new mission reminded her how war spared no one. Yet she stayed at her post, because someone had to measure the cost of every weapon fired. Mara eased the shuttle between two collapsed towers. Below, she saw twisted metal and broken roads, where once proud Lorathian ships had landed. She activated her drone bay, releasing 3 slender scout drones that hummed into the ruin. The drone's lights swept over blasted statues and overturned supply crates. Mara tracked their feeds, marking lifeless bodies and empty supply lockers. Her heart ached at every silent form. She whispered a short prayer to the frontier's saints. May their souls find peace, and moved her focus to the primary mission. As she reviewed the final drone feed, a sudden spike flickered on her communications panel. It was faint, buried under static, a melodic sequence in a minor key. At first she thought it was a glitch, but the pattern repeated. She paused the drone and zoomed in on a collapsed corridor. A small beacon pulsed green, nearly invisible among the ruin. Mara's breath caught. No human weapon used that protocol. She tapped her console and ran a quick decryption. The signal carried a pulse pattern used by the fallen Sun Throne. An ancient royal distress code, thought lost to history. Her fingers hovered above the controls. Official orders forbade detours unless Allied forces confirmed survivors. The Corps' command. Send her back at Orion Expanse would surely order her to leave immediately. Yet the message was clear. Help me. Mara reran the decryption. The words surfaced in her mind like a distant song. Sorelli, princess, fallen sun, throne. A chill passed through her. A princess. Trapped beneath this. Ruin, alone, and dying? The thought drove a hammering in her chest. Mara leaned back in her seat and let the shuttle drift. She felt the weight of her decision. If she ignored the signal, a noble life would end. If she followed it, she might lose her rank, or worse. Around her, the shuttle's hum seemed unbearably loud. She pressed a hand to her temple to still her racing thoughts. In that moment of silence, she remembered why she joined the Corps, not for glory or medals, but to protect lives. She closed her eyes and saw the faces of civilians she had saved on Mars and Titan. Each life mattered, regardless of rank or species. She opened her eyes with quiet resolve. Course set for Lorath Undercity, she told her AI companion Anya. The shuttle's autopilot acknowledged, and Mara overrode the navlock to point toward the faint beacon. She activated stealth mode, dimming external lights and cutting non-essential transmissions. Her pulse slowed as she prepared for the descent. Fear and hope mingled in her veins. Fear of breaking orders, hope of saving a life. The shuttle shuddered as it entered the upper layers of dusty atmosphere, and Mara gripped the armrests. Her mind focused on one clear goal: find the princess and bring her home. As the crumbled skyline of Lorath drew nearer through her cockpit window, surge of determination. Every mission before had been tactical, measured by enemy strength and strategic gain. This one felt different, personal, urgent. She whispered, "Hold on, princess." In that wordless promise, she sealed her choice, no matter what lay ahead. She would not let the helpless remain buried in the ruins. In the quiet between missions, humanity had found a new purpose: compassion. And Mara Holt would lead the way. Lieutenant Mara Holt guided her shuttle deeper into the Undercity, her hands steady on the controls, though her heart fluttered with both fear and purpose. The twilight of broken neurons danced on her visor as she switched off non-essential systems, draping the craft in near invisibility. Below, jagged ruins formed a labyrinth of shadow and ruin. Mara's breath caught as she remembered the signal's soft pleso, different from the violence she had known. With careful precision, she piloted the shuttle to a narrow alcove beneath a fractured archway, where a single green beacon pulsed like a distant heartbeat. Silence enveloped the cabin as she powered down the engines. Anya, the shuttle's AI, whispered system statuses in a calm, reassuring tone. Mara paused for a moment, closing her eyes and letting the faint hum of the Undercity fill her senses. In that quiet, she imagined the princess trapped below alone, afraid and clinging to hope. The thought steadied her resolve. She activated her suit's magnetic boots, felt their gentle tug, and unlatched the cockpit hatch. Stepping onto the uneven ground, Mara's boots crunched against dust and debris. The air smelled of rust and old ozone, and each breath reminded her how far she was from safety. She raised her helmet's lights and swept the ruins for a path. Ahead, A tunnel entrance yawned beneath a collapsed support beam. Faint echoes whispered through the dark passages, perhaps the princess's soft singing or the hum of a damaged life support unit. With Anya's guidance, Mara deployed a slender drone equipped with a thermal scanner. The drone zipped ahead, its orange glow tracing the tunnel's curves until red and yellow hotspots appeared on the feed. Life signs. Mara's pulse quickened as she followed the drone deeper into the maze. Broken pillars loomed like silent sentinels, and dangling cables trailed sparks now and then, casting fleeting shadows on cracked walls. She paused at a fallen column and placed a hand on the cold stone, centering herself. Memories of her family surfaced, her sister's laughter after their father's stories, her mother's gentle hand on her shoulder. Those memories reminded her why she served, to protect the vulnerable, to honor hope. A sudden tremor rolled through the passage, and dust rained from the ceiling. Mara grabbed a nearby support beam to steady herself. The drone's lights flickered, then stabilized as it hovered ahead, guiding her onward. She exhaled slowly, whispering, "I'm coming, princess." Stepping forward, she navigated around shattered statues carved with Lorathi runes words of wisdom and harmony. The language was foreign, but its meaning shone through: unity, compassion, and resilience. In that moment, Mara felt a kinship with Sorelli, as if their hearts beat to the same quiet song. At last, the tunnel opened in two, a vast chamber strewn with collapsed scaffolding. In the center, beneath a tangle of beams, Mara spotted the green glow of the beacon. She slipped to her knees and pushed aside a length of metal, revealing a slender hand gloved in fine fabric. Encouraged, she gripped her cutting torch and began to melt through twisted steel, sparks dancing like fleeting stars. The chamber shuddered, with distant explosions, and Mara's chest tightened, yet she worked steadily, driven by the princess's soft breath echoing in the silence. When the final beam gave way, she reached in and lifted Sorelli's frail form into her arms. The princess's eyes fluttered open, widening at the sight of a human face looming above her. Mara offered a gentle smile and murmured, "I'm here to save you." Relief washed over Sorelli's features, and a fragile smile bloomed. Mara felt warmth flood her chest as she helped the princess stand, bracing her with a strong arm. In that shared moment of rescue, two souls of different worlds found a bridge of compassion. Together, they turned toward the tunnel's exit. Mara scanned the path for dangers, her senses alert. Yet in her heart she carried a new certainty, that even in the darkest ruins, a single act of kindness could light the way. And as they stepped into the corridor's shadow, Mara knew their journey had only just begun, in that hope, like a flickering beacon, would guide them home. Mara guided Sorelli through the winding corridor, each step careful against loose stones and trailing wires. The princess leaned on her arm, her breathing shallow but steady. Clung to their suits, and the distant rumble of explosions reminded them that the war still raged around them. Yet in that silent tunnel, a new story was unfolding, one of trust and quiet courage. Mara paused at a fractured wall where graffiti and Lorathi script glimmered under her helmet light. She knelt to traced the letters with her gloved finger. "Unity and strength," she said softly, reading the translation on her visor. Sorelli watched, her eyes bright. "That is what my people believe," she whispered. "Eh?" Mara offered a gentle nod and extended her hand. Sorelli took it, and for a moment there, different worlds felt joined by the same hope. At the next junction, an overturned supply crate blocked their path. Mara set Sorelli gently against the wall and knelt beside the crate. She activated a compact tool that emitted a low hum, vibrating the crate free of rubble. Sorelli watched in awe as the metal shifted away like it was liquid. When the path opened, Mara offered her hand to the princess. Sorelli placed her hand in Mara's and stood carefully, trusting her new friend without hesitation. As they moved on, Sorelli's strength grew with each step. She began to hum the hymn of her people, a soft melody that floated through the corridor. Mara recognized it from the distress signal and hummed along, matching the tune. Da-da-da! Their voices, mingled human and Lorethi, creating a gentle harmony in the darkness. In that moment, fear fell away, replaced by warmth and companionship. Ahead, they reached a collapsed shaft leading upward. The opening was narrow and steep, covered in jagged steel bars. Sorelli hesitated. "I cannot climb," she murmured, voice trembling. Mara knelt and smiled. "You don't have to climb alone." She placed one arm around Sorelli's waist and held her hand with the other. "I will carry you." With careful effort, Mara lifted the princess and began to climb the broken ladder rungs. Each pull tested her arms, but she moved steadily. Fueled by purpose, Sorelli pressed close, her trust a powerful anchor. When they reached the top, fresh air greeted them with the smell of burning fuel and hot metal. Mara guided Sorelli onto solid ground and unsealed her life support vest. She replaced it with a portable unit she carried in her pack. Sorelli closed her eyes as the new system hissed to life, and her color returned. She touched Mara's arm and said, "Thank you." The words were simple, but Mara felt their weight in her chest. They emerged into a ruined courtyard where moonlight filtered through a broken dome. Shards of glass sparkled like stars among the wreckage. Sorelli paused to absorb the sight, tears slipping down her cheeks. "This place was beautiful once," she said softly. Mara placed a hand on her shoulder. "One day, it can be again." The promise hung between them, a fragile seed planted in shattered stone. Mara scanned the sky and called Anya. "We need an extraction point. Mark the open plaza near grid 7. The AI complied, and a soft green waypoint glowed on Mara's visor. Sorelli stepped forward, her steps sure. With each footfall, the princess seemed to grow stronger, her dignity restored by the act of being saved and the kindness of a stranger. As they walked toward the extraction point, Mara looked at Sorelli's profile against the moonlit ruins. She felt a swell of pride and hope. In a galaxy torn by war, 2 lives had crossed paths in the darkest place, yet in that crossing, they had found something precious: compassion. And as they moved into the open courtyard, side by side, they carried with them a quiet promise that no matter how deep the ruins, kindness could build a path home. ChatGPT said. Mara led Sorelli across the ruined plaza toward the hover litter waiting beyond a fractured fountain. The princess's steps were steady now, her breathing calm in the new life support vest. The pale moonlight painted broken statues in soft silver, and Sorelli paused to touch a fallen lion sculpture, its face worn but noble. "My people believed lions were protectors," she said quietly. Mara smiled and nodded. "Then you have their heart within you." They reached the litter, just as Anya signaled incoming patrol drones. Mara crouched beside Sorelli and whispered, "Stay close." She tapped a console on the litter's arm, activating a holographic camouflage. The hover litter shimmered, blending into moonlit shadows. Sorelli held her breath, eyes wide as the first drone swept overhead. Its scanners glowed faint red, then passed on. Relief warmed Mara's chest. Even in danger, compassion could hide. Then better than steel? Mara climbed onto the litter's control panel and guided it toward the shuttle's landing pad. Sorelli watched the display, her fingers tracing the map's glowing lines. "Your skill is impressive," she said softly. Mara glanced over and offered a small laugh. "I learned to adapt," she replied. "But I never had to protect a princess before." Sorelli smiled, a fragile curve, turning real with warmth. "You are protecting more than a title," she said. "You are protecting hope." As the litter glided through shattered archways, Sorelli studied Mara's face in the panel's reflection. She saw determination in the lieutenant's eyes and something gentler, underneath kindness that did not weaken strength. Sorelli's own courage blossomed in that gaze. She straightened her shoulders and whispered, "Thank you for believing in me." Mara's jaw softened. "I believe in all life," she said, "especially those who still dare to hope." They arrived at the shuttle just as another tremor rocked the ground. The litter bumped against the ramp, and Mara steadied it with a firm hand. Sorelli slid off and turned to help Mara lower the backrest. Together they moved in perfect harmony, 2 beings from different worlds united by compassion. When the litter retracted, Mara guided Sorelli into the shuttle's cabin and sealed the hatch. Sorelli settled onto a soft bench, exhaustion finally catching up. Mara returned to the cockpit, hands working the controls with confident ease. She engaged thrusters and lifted off the broken ground. The ruins fell away beneath them, cracked stone and twisted metal fading into the distance. Sorelli leaned against the cabin wall and closed her eyes. In the loneliness of space, she felt safe for the first time in days. The faint hum of the engines was a lullaby, carrying her away from ruin and toward an uncertain future filled with promise. Mara hovered above the battlefield, scanning for a clear corridor to exit the conflict zone. She plotted a course that skirted the main fighting, weaving between drifting wreckage fields. Sorelli watched the stars slide past the window and whispered, "I never imagined help would come." Mara's gaze softened as she navigated. "Help can come from the most unexpected places," she said. Sorelli's lips curved into a genuine smile, especially when hearts choose kindness over orders. The shuttle cleared the last patrol. Zonin dropped into silent warp. Sorelli opened her eyes and approached the cockpit. She rested a hand on the transparent screen. "What will happen now?" she asked. Mara paused the warp drive and turned. "You will recover," she said. "Then we will tell your story. Maybe it can inspire peace." Sorelli's eyes glowed with gratitude. "And your story?" she asked. Mara thought of all the young soldiers who lost their way in war. "I will keep saving lives," she said, one by one. As the stars streaked into lines around them, the princess and the lieutenant stood together in the soft glow of the control deck. Two souls, bound by a single act of compassion, looked ahead toward a galaxy torn by war. Yet within their hearts, a new dawn was rising, a promise that kindness could light the darkest night, and that hope, once kindled, could never be extinguished. Princess Sorelli sat on a soft medical cot in the shuttle's infirmary bay, her body still tired from the rescue. The gentle hum of healing lights bathed her in a calm glow. She flexed her fingers, testing the strength returning to her limbs. Across the room, Lieutenant Mara Holt consulted a datapad, reviewing Sorelli's vital signs. Each reading showed improvement, a steady pulse, warming skin, and clearer breathing. In that silence, the two shared a peaceful moment, bound by survival and newfound trust. Mara set down the datapad and approached Sorelli with a small tray of nutrient gel. "You need to eat something," she said softly, offering a spoon. Sorelli looked at the bright gel, unsure at first, but then tasted it. Its flavor reminded her of sweet fruit from her home world. As she ate, color returned. Too, her cheeks and her eyes brightened. She smiled and said, "Thank you, Lieutenant. You have saved more than my life. You have given me hope." Mara settled into a chair beside the cot. "Tell me about Lorath," she said gently. Curiosity and care shone in her voice. Sorelli's chest rose with emotion as she began to speak. Of crystal gardens that glowed under twin suns, of laughter echoing in marble halls, and of her people's gentle art of song. Even through pain, her voice carried warmth. Mara listened, enraptured by memories of beauty lost to war. In Sorelli's words, Mara saw the real value of what she had fought to protect. A soft chime announced that the shuttle had entered safe space beyond the battle zone. Anya's voice, calm and mechanical, informed them that a medical ship stood ready at the nearest station. Sorelli sat up and placed her hand over her heart. "I must return to my people," she said, voice firm yet tender. Mara nodded, understanding the weight of duty. She helped Sorelli rise and guided her to the shuttle's viewing port, where stars glimmered like distant jewels. Outside the window, a sleek medical vessel approached. Its white hull bore the symbol of the Intergalactic Relief Council. Sorelli watched its approach with hopeful eyes. "I will never forget what you have done," she whispered. Mara placed a hand on the princess's shoulder. "Neither will I," she replied. "Your rescue will remind many that life is precious, no matter the flag or race." Sorelli's grip tightened in silent gratitude. When the medical ship docked, Mara helped Sorelli step onto the smooth corridor of the relief vessel. White-coated medics greeted them, their voices gentle and reassuring. As sensors scanned Sorelli, Mara stood back, her heart full. She knew her mission here was ending, but the bond forged in Lorith's ruins would last. Sorelli looked back once, meeting Mara's gaze. In that single look, they shared unspoken thanks and an unbreakable promise of friendship between worlds. Later, in a private cabin aboard the relief ship, Sorelli began a message to her people. Her voice, steady and clear, carried words of hope and unity. She spoke of a human lieutenant who risked her life to save an alien princess. She told of compassion that crossed star lanes and hearts that chose kindness over orders. In each sentence, Sorelli's tone held strength and gratitude. The recording would beam across Lorathian networks, igniting courage in her people and stirring compassion in their allies. Back on Mara's shuttle, she prepared to depart for her next mission. She cleaned her pilot's seat and ran system checks. Her thoughts returned again and again to the princess's gentle voice and warm smile. She remembered the echo of that first plea and the courage it took to follow it. As Mara lifted off into the starlit corridor, she whispered to the empty cabin, "May your people rebuild, and may kindness guide us all." Above the silent void, two vessels drifted apart, one carrying a princess back to her world, the other carrying a lieutenant toward new duties. Between them, a spark of hope had flown, a reminder that in a galaxy torn by war, simple acts of compassion could build bridges stronger than any weapon. And in their hearts, both women carried the promise of a brighter dawn, one shaped by courage, friendship, and the light of a single, steadfast act of kindness. The sun rose over the rebuilt spires of Lorith's capital as Princess Sorelli stood on a balcony, gazing at the crystal gardens below. The air was clear and warm, carrying the scent of flowering vines that had returned with the peace her message had helped inspire. Across the city, white banners bore the sigil of the fallen sun. But today they fluttered beside the blue flag of Earth's horizon, a symbol of unity between worlds. Sorelli drew a deep breath, her heart full of hope and pride. Below her, citizens gathered in the plaza for the first public council since the war had ended. Elder Lorathi spoke softly, recounting the tale of a human lieutenant who defied orders to rescue a princess buried in ruins. Children listened with wide eyes, imagining Lieutenant Mara Holt's courage as she guided light through darkness. Sorelli smiled at their wonder, knowing that compassion could ignite bravery in even the smallest hearts. In the council chamber, Lorathi ambassadors met with Earth envoys to sign the Treaty of Shared Hope. Sorelli watched as her mother placed ink upon the scroll. Then as Commodore Reyes of Horizon Corps sealed it with a firm handshake, cameras from both worlds recorded the moment, capturing the promise of lasting peace. The treaty would ensure aid for rebuilding and cultural exchange programs, forging bonds stronger than any treaty before. Mara Holt sat among the delegates, dressed in her Corps' uniform with its simple silver star. Though still a lieutenant, she wore the grace of someone who had changed history. Sorelli caught her eye and offered a small wave. Mara rose and met the princess in a brief embrace before returning to her seat. Neither spoke, words were not needed. Their shared look carried gratitude, respect, and a friendship born in the darkness of wreckage. After the ceremony, Sorelli led Mara through the gardens that had once been rubble. Crystal fountains now glistened in sunlight, and laughter echoed where silence had reigned. Sorelli paused by a statue crafted in Mara's honor, a figure in armor reaching out to a fallen princess. Tears glimmered in her eyes. "You saved more than my life," she said softly. Mara looked at the statue and replied, "You taught me why I fight." As evening fell, a festival lit the streets with lanterns that floated like fireflies. Music blended human drums with Lorathi strings, creating a warm, hopeful melody. Sorelli and Mara walked side by side, sampling sweet, spiced fruit offered by vendors. Citizens from both worlds danced together, their steps weaving a tapestry of joy. In every smiling face, Sorelli saw proof that kindness could heal even the deepest wounds. Before the night ended, Sorelli addressed the crowd from a raised platform. Her voice, gentle but clear, carried across the plaza. She spoke of courage, compassion, and the power of a single choice. "When we choose to help, even when others remain silent, we light a path for all," she said. The crowd cheered, and fireworks blossomed overhead in brilliant colors. In that moment, the galaxy, felt a little smaller, and hope felt boundless. Mara watched Sorelli from the edge of the crowd, her heart swelling. She had returned to her vessel that night, but she chose to stay until the festival ended. When the final lantern drifted into the starry sky, Mara turned to Sorelli and said, "I will carry this hope to every corner of space." Sorelli extended her hand, "And I will sing of your kindness to every child on Lorath." They clasped hands, sealing their promise. Under the moonlit sky, Princess and Lieutenant stood together, two souls who met in darkness and forged a brighter future. In their friendship lay the proof that even in a galaxy scarred by war, a single act of compassion could spark change across worlds. And as the last lantern disappeared into starlight, their hearts beat in quiet harmony, hope reborn, peace secured, and the promise of a new dawn shining brighter than any sun.